Hello, welcome along to Cairn Hill Cabin in County Cavan in Ireland, and my name is Margaret McKenna. Now, I don't normally do a live stream on a Saturday, but it is National Drawing Day here, and so I thought, well, what better to do than have a live stream, especially for the day that's in it. I thought, well, what kind of live stream might be the best one to do in terms of drawing? And well, live drawing is obviously probably the worst thing that people think they want to draw. They obviously, I don't want them to draw a person in the picture. So I said, well, why not tackle a little bit about that? So hopefully you'll get a few little tips and a few ideas and a bit of encouragement to give it a go by the end of it. I'm going to cover a few different aspects. I think if you saw at the page, I've done a drawing, and I'll just show it to you here. This picture here. I don't mind if I look to the left, it's because I have the screen separate from the camera, and I just want to make sure that you can actually see it. So this is the picture I'm actually going to be doing at the end. Again, it's a sketch rather than a full drawing, as you can see. It's quite sketchy, and I want to keep it like that because I'm really more concentrating on the life drawing aspect than the actual finished piece. So I'm going to cover a few things. So I'm going to cover a bit about proportion, a little bit about the lines of movement, and a little bit about negative space, and then I'll do the drawing as well. So hopefully you'll get a little bit of as I say, an idea of what way to go about it when you tackle it yourself. Okay, so and I'm going to start with, I'm going to turn the camera backwards and forwards. So I'll turn the camera down a minute and say, don't mind if I look to the left. It's because I have the screen behind me, so I can see what's actually on the screen, and I will look back if there's any comments. If you have any comments or any questions, please put them up here, and I'll just check back on the laptop and see. It's just getting used to this idea. So okay, I'm just going to turn it to the page now, because you really want to see the page, not me. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to do a little bit about proportion. So what I have here is a rough male and female body here, and often there's little aspects that are quite easy to kind of make mistakes on, as it were, little things that we often take for granted, like arms and length of arms, length of legs, things like that. But first of all, I'm going to just talk about the head. How many heads roughly to a body? Generally, we say there's about 7.5 heads to a body. Now, this is really a rough guide, because obviously we're all human beings and we're all different shapes and sizes. So 7.5 heads is a rough guide. In the olden days, when they would do, the old masters would often use, when they were doing, say, pictures of royalty, they would use 8 or 8.5 heads sometimes. If you look back at some of the old masters, you'll see that tiny heads, and they're supposed to give a sense of a regal kind of a sense, like make them look that they were very proper and had power. So they actually emphasize the body length rather than the head size. Also with superheroes, look at Superman and all that, all small heads. But we're not, we've got bigger heads. So, okay, because we're just ordinary people, and even people have all different shapes, heads and sizes. So, okay, so here we go. So watch, so there's about 7, so it's 1, and that's including the head. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and about half down to that's where his back heel would be. Same again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5. Now, what I want to do is, I want to draw attention to a few things. First of all, I want to draw attention to where the elbows are, because often one of the common mistakes that's made is to draw the arms too short. So if you actually, in fact, if you're sitting there, bring your elbows into your sides, and you'll actually find that your elbows are actually into your waist here, like that. See, they're right into the waist. And then if you actually bring your hand right down to right down your leg, you'll actually find that your tips of your fingers are roughly about halfway between your hips and your knees. So actually your arms are quite long, you know, in the whole scheme of things. And actually even from, say, your bottom down to your heel is 1, 2, 3.5 heads. So bear those little things in mind when you're doing your pictures. The other thing I want to say is watching the difference between male and female figures. I know when I was a kid, I was about 12, and I did a picture of I might bring it back so you can see me a little bit too, so I can talk. I feel strange and sticking my hand going up and down. I did a picture of a girl with a basket of flowers, and I was about 13, I'd say, and she had jeans and a shirt on, and I went up to the teacher and I showed her, and I spent quite a while doing it, and it was good drawing, and she thought it was very good. But she said, I was seen to draw a girl with flowers. And I said, that is a girl. No, you've drawn a boy with long hair. And I said, oh, okay. And I always remember that because it stuck with me. And if you look back at the drawing here, which you can still see, male shoulders are wider, much wider compared to the hips than the female shoulders. Do you see? Look, there's what the hips. They're not, the hips are not as wide, but the ratio in comparison is a much bigger ratio between the hips and then the shoulders on a male than on a female. And again, watching where the waist goes into the waist. Now, of course, you might say, well, that's an ideal figure, and we don't all have waists like that, of course. But even to actually start with that, and if you want to flesh out the character, you can start with the overall basic proportions on the body. So that's just one aspect to think about. Very easy to get these online. I'll put this up on my, I think I have the picture actually on my Facebook page, so you can always download it, but you can get them on Google. There's loads of them. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, which is one you don't see as much about, and it's something that I find really handy, is called what I call lines of movement, and so I'm just going to show it here. So we've got yeah, you can see it there. We've got a guy here. I took this image off Google and I just drew it. As I say, he's doing some little dance step, I think, actually in the actual photograph. Now, what I looked at here was this. I watched this angle here. Look at this angle of the shoulders here first, right? Watch, and look at this across his waist tip area. Look there. So those two lines dictate the twist of the body. And now, okay. And then we're going to watch the line that's going down his spine, and you watch the leg, this leg, because this is the leg that is the dictating the flow. This leg here, this is the leg he's putting out forward. Probably going to land on that leg, and he's going to have. There's no real weight on it at the moment because he's sort of in the middle of a jump, but that's the leg that's going to come down onto the ground. And so this is the one. So watch that line there. See. I'm not really that concerned about the proportion. This is how rough I would do a drawing when I start. Look, this and this, flick for the end, and then we can actually build it out from there. Again, we have an example here, jumping person. Watch little shoulders here, the hip here. Got the swing of that, look, going down the inside leg. Now I could build that out, flesh that out, and we can make it into a person. Just make sure you can see it, yeah, what I'm doing. Now again, I'm just doing it very roughly. But we can check the head size. So 1, 2. Okay, I bring his waist up a little bit up there because I'm just checking roughly where his face. And then we can watch the inside leg. See, look, that's how quick I did, just like an L shape. But if you build that out, suddenly you start to get a full figure. So what I'm saying is, you don't start on the details. You don't start on trying to get that hand right. You don't try and draw around the figure. You try and draw the skeleton of the figure. And what I was going to do is actually just going to show you a couple of other examples of that for a second. I thought it might be handy, is just because okay, so say if you're going to draw somebody running. So right now I'm going to look up on my literally blind, as it were, because I want to show you how I would approach something that I haven't seen before, which I think is important to let you see. So we'll say a man running, and I'm just literally doing it on. There's my phone here. I'm just going to put up man running. Okay, there we go. And images, and we'll just get a picture here of a man running here. Okay, so let's see a good one. A good one that has a bit of a what you call it, a movement in them. But they all have movement. Oh, here's one here. Okay, so can you see that there for a minute? Now, it doesn't matter if you see it for long. I'm just going to show it to you briefly, so you see what I'm doing it from. So what I'm going to look at with this guy is, I'm just going to do a couple of these pictures here, just make sure I'm not in the way of the camera. I'm just going there. I'm watching his shoulder. I'm watching the shoulder line here. I'm watching this. He doesn't really have a width because he's side view. You won't see much of his waist, but I see that it's got that kind of a bend towards the hip, and his leg is going to come. His spine kind of comes down there, and then down the inside of the leg he's got, and then he's got this leg here, and he's got an arm here, and another arm is bent like that. Now that's, as you can see, how matchsticky like that is at the moment. I'm going to make these lines a bit heavier so you might see them. And you'd say, okay, and there's his head. Now that there is very rough, as you can see. But do you see the way there's a kind of a movement in it? Because I'm getting this movement in here, I'm not getting caught up in the details. Now you can flesh it out then. You see, you can build his body out from there. So you can get that. Now I'm just doing this very roughly, as you can see. But you can see him coming to life, as it were. You probably go off the page a bit, this guy actually, because I want to make a good stretch on his leg. And I'm going to bring down his knee. See that now I had his knee up here somewhere, which is way too short, but I don't care about that because, and you can always reference back with his heads, 1, 2, roughly get the idea of how far. There's another head down to there. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I could always stretch his leg out a little bit. Now you see like that. So you can, and then we can kind of build his head out a little bit like this. Keep looking down at him all the time. But you see how he's coming to life a little bit now. You see, and again, I'm basing it on the whole idea of lines of movement. So we're getting this, the line here of his shoulders and the line of the waist, and they're very important to actually. If you get those in, you see the twist of the body, the line of movement coming down his spine, down the leg. It doesn't even have to be a running body. For example, you could have a person standing. I'll just put one more here, sort of a woman maybe standing, for example. So we have a woman. I'll do her standing, because often if you shift your weight, you'll use that leg. You'll use that leg as the line of movement. Just let me show you now. Woman standing. Let's get an image here. Oh, there's a good one. Okay, here's a good one here. Oh yeah, there's a great one there. Now, there's a really good one here. You can see that. You can see where her, now, see that you can see the way she's got this, you can see the line on her shoulder, the line on her hip, and I'll do it from here. So, what I see when I see her is I see her line, I see there's her shoulder line, her hip line, like that. And I'm going to draw her head, so her spine is coming down the middle, and she's got a leg that's coming down like that. And the other leg is coming down like that. And then she's got, and already you can see that there's actually a figure there. And you see, you can feel the weight on that leg, you see? So if I fill her out, for example, do you know what's a great way of practice now? I'll tell you now in a minute when I just roughly get her in. I'm not even going to go into much detail on it, but watch. You see her just building out bit by bit. Bring her arm a bit more further out. Don't mind that line, not even bother rubbing it out. And we can just do it. And we see her. As I said, this is very rough, but I want to just literally give you the idea of what I'm talking about. We can just then crisscross her nose and her mouth is there. And I could work forever on that just to get it right. Now there we go. Now, do you see here this line and this line there was the two that was giving the twist to the body. So immediately you can see the twist of the body here and her spine coming down here, and then you can just that line down the legs. So that's the leg that has the weight, and you can see that lovely swing on her hip. And then this leg is much more relaxed because he's not actually putting too much weight. That's more for balancing really. And then you have this little triangle shape in here. So I'm going to talk about that these areas now in a moment, these little spaces here. So really that's what I'm talking about. You know what's a great way of practicing for this? Unfortunately nowadays we don't see too much in the newspapers of sports sections with running figures and footballers and that. But if you have any left, or if you can find any, actually do that with the figures. If you can get your hands on a newspaper which has, or even a book that you don't really mind drawing on, with action figures of any type, Google images, get them off Google, print a few, and literally do that with the images. So I'll just show you for example on her. If you could get a picture, something like that, and then draw this line here going across the shoulders, draw the line on the waist from one or the hip from one dot to one dot, draw this line that goes down the middle, down her leg, and this line here, and gradually see what way bodies are moving and where they're shifting their weight. And it's a really handy little tool, if you know what I mean, to teach you how to look at people and how the movements, the lines of movement as I call it, on their bodies. And then you can also then check back with the proportions, which are kind of more you get the hang of them bit by bit, because you get used to knowing where how many heads to the waist. If your elbows bend at the waist and your arms are long enough, it's amazing how that all falls into place, because often people draw their arms too short, and that kind of often sends everything else out of kilter, as it were. So now on my original picture, which I want to have a look at in a minute, I want to talk about one more little aspect, and that is called negative spaces. Now, some of you might have heard of negative spaces. Negative spaces are basically the spaces you don't draw. So they're these kind of spaces. So I'm just actually going to get a brush actually for a moment. I'm not actually painting, it's not a painting class, but so I'm only using the brush as I just going to get a brush that actually is the right size here for a moment. Okay, this will do fine. And I'm going to just paint in a colour in here. So what I'm doing is, this is a negative space. You see that space there? You see, you can't see it. Don't mind me looking backwards, it's just to make sure that you're actually seeing the, I'm not getting in the way of the camera, although it shouldn't be. Okay, so, and then there's another space, that's a negative space, there's a real negative space. Look, it's almost totally enclosed. So this area here is a negative space. And what I'm talking, when I say negative space in here, that area here, for example, and even this, of course, is an obvious negative space, this one, because you imagine the ground is along here. So you could just get this whole area here is negative space. And the reason I say this is important is because it's a great way of checking what you've done. Because if you look at that shape there, you can actually check this shape. What shape is that as against what the shape that you're drawing? So you're drawing the body, but then sometimes if you realize, for example, if you've got an arm sort of on the hip and you've got that triangle shape like that I did with the other girl there a minute ago, where's she gone? This one here. Sorry, just go back here for a second. A very good negative space, for example, in this one will be these ones here. And if you're doing a drawing and you find sometimes, I've been in classes where a student might say, you know, the arm might have come out way out here, for example. And they'd say, that's not right, it's not right. And then I'd say, well, look, check. And maybe it was me they were drawing. I'd say, look, I put my hand on my hip, and they'd say, what's that space there, that shape? And they'd say, oh my God, it's completely different. My triangle there is a completely different shape. And it's amazing when they put that triangle in the right shape, it all falls into place. So it's a great checking mechanism. So just again, another way of checking your work to make sure that you've got it all sort of, it's all kind of coming together right in the right way. So the shapes between carriages could be the shape in between here, could be the shape under here. It could be any place that's you're not drawing, the opposite of what you're drawing, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just run through this picture here. You can check it on your face. I'll just put it to the side, so I don't know whether you'll actually see it. Just give you a second. Oh, I'm knocking everything down here. Don't worry. I'm just going to put the drawing here. You'll probably see some of it anyway. Just check there behind if you can see it. You can, more or less. Clearly. Yep. Great stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start and show you how I would approach this actual drawing. Okay. So I'm going to just roughly, and this is how rough I do it initially. I hope you can see these lines. I don't want to make them too hard. I'll be going over them strongly. So I'm going to watch this line here. So I'm just going to, and everything's ready to be changed. So there's this shape here in the back, and a front like that, and there's a lovely big line. Don't mind she goes off the page a bit here. And there's this line here. And that's as detailed as I need to go initially. So I'm literally just basing the rough shapes as like that. Look at these shapes. You look at that lovely flow down the figure. So look at the flow of the figure first. You can always fill in the details afterwards. Don't think in terms of I have to draw around the figure and I'm going to draw around the head and go down there. Don't do that. Just work with a nice flow. And it's really relaxing because you're trying to sort of gain the insight into kind of it's almost like you're getting into them. What way are they? What they're thinking about? What's behind them when they're doing this movement? And now I'm going to watch this shoulder. Look at that shoulder there. Look how strong an angle that is. Look, and again it goes right up his arm. Well, really, all the way up there. And then we have his head is here, and this leg is the dominant. This leg comes down and lovely sweeping, and this leg comes a sharp angle like that. So that is as near as you have to do initially. You can see how rough that is. And of course, watch this. He's got this line roughly on the shape. So this line is here is very angled. This is almost straight. So again, he's got a straight, his all the movement is in his upper body, and then the balance and the steadiness is in the bottom part, as you can see. So now I can start to fill him in a little bit, or either of them really. Maybe we'll start with her first of all. So I'm just going to get roughly, I'm just going to roughly see where her head is. So we're just going to bring, just going to get the line of her waist, and I'm going to bring up this arm a bit more, and I can see I've brought it up a bit more there now, because I think it was a bit too, and that's all I'm going to do for the hand, that shape there. And then we can put her head here. Might be slightly different from the original. Don't panic about that. Okay. So I'm just going to gradually add the details in. Now watch, she's got a little bit of a bottom here, obviously. So you can get, this is where you get the details in, and we can go down the leg. Watch the muscles on the leg, because he's going to have muscles. Her feet's going to go off the thing a bit there. Don't worry about. I'm not going to bother about that. I moved them over a little bit here in this picture. So again, you're kind of following on that movement there, and then you've got the line here coming down. Watch roughly now her count her head. So there's one, and of course she's stretched up, so you can imagine her head would actually be here. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5. So her feet will probably come to about there actually. Now see, and that's great. See, that's where when you're doing it, it's literally is, as I say, it's a movable object right to the last moment. You decide when you're happy with it, where actually you want to put where you want to finalize the details of the body. And this leg will go out, but this leg will actually go off the page. Don't worry, I'm not even going to worry about that. And then we can put her dress like this. The dress is very easy to do like that. And now we're going to work on him. So we're going to, again, we've got this lovely line of movement coming down here, but we can fill him out a little bit, give him a bit of a body. I'm not going into the whole architecture of the body. I could go into the whole anatomy part, but that would be another lesson altogether. So because obviously we have to take account of what's underneath the body, you know what I mean, like, so that, you know, we've got our breasts here, we've got our bottom here, we've got, you know, his chest here. So even but he's got a much more square kind of a body, much more angular than she would have. Being dancers, they would both be very well toned anyway, obviously, otherwise they would be falling around the place probably. So I'm going to bring that's kind of almost up the side of his head, so we're going to have a head here like this, connect him up afterwards, and we'll bring his arm from here, and we can just bring it, so I don't know what way I have his hand. It's off the page yet. That actually does go off that page, so we'll just let it go off like that. That's handy. So okay, now we're going to bring this down. So we're going to go 1, 2. So I'm going to bring up his waist to here. You see, this is where exactly I'm talking about. You move it along as you work along, and you don't get panicky about lines or extra lines or double lines or anything like that. Because often people think, oh, I've made a mistake, and they go right for the rubber. I honestly don't use the rubber hardly at all, because even though I make a mistake, that's fine. I just leave the line there and let it work through it. I might rub it out, and I might not later on. I might do a tree. It depends on the type of drawing I'm doing, how finished I want it to be. So we're going to come down the front of this leg now. I'm going to build him out like that. And we can actually build his leg underneath. So much that muscle on the back, the calf muscle there. And we're going to come down roughly again. We can work down, there's one head to the body. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then it's going to have one leg, it's going to come out there. So he's going to come down like that. Actually, he's got a bit better movement in his leg than he has in the original one, I think. So then we start to fill it out. If anybody's got any questions, don't be afraid to ask. I can have a look at them there on the screen. So I'm going to start just darkening in her hair here. I just want to bring it up to a certain level. I'm just going to bring her nose and her. I'm using a black marker now. You could use a dark pencil or something like a 2B pencil would be nice actually, because it's kind of little creases in here. Just going to start to emphasize the features, as it were. I'm not going into too much detail. I'm not going a little bit on the hand, but you don't have to do too much on the hand. You just have to do something like that would be enough to give the impression that your hand is dropping down like that. And I say let her foot go off the page. Now when I'm doing the dress, I'm just going to let it flow into this point here. So you can imagine it's all gathered at the waist. So I'm just going to bring it, just literally coming out almost like the hands of a clock, and it's all going around the same direction. I'm just going to give it a little sort of a wiggle on it, like that, and we're going to bring that a little bit more definition into her. And we'll get her foot in here like that. Now we're going to have her other arm here is bent behind, so you don't really see too much. His arm comes around behind her. It's coming behind her body, and she's actually holding on like that. So we're going to just you'll just see a little bit more of her arm. I have a little bit more in this picture here than I have in the other one, because it's just the way it's working out, and that's fine, because it's going to bend here, because remember, she swung that back in, it would be about there. So we're just going to get, and also when you're doing something like a t-shirt, don't forget the stretches on the t-shirt. Don't forget that it's going to stretch. It's going to stretch up towards his arm. So I'm really just trying to now watch the face. I'm just going to put a little bit of a line down the what would be the center of his face, but it's very much 3/4 view, or almost a side view actually. And so I'm going to just bring out his hair, and we build up his head then. Now I'm going to bring up his arm like that, or just make it come off the page. So one of the great ways, do you know what to do? The best way actually to do it is to actually practice. If you practice your drawing people, one of the exercises we used to get, I know I've done this so many times in my classes, and they probably know exactly what I'm going to say if anyone's listening in. I just checked there's no one there. Is to actually draw without looking at your page. I remember doing an exercise with a life drawing class, and I stood up in front of the class and got everybody to draw me, and then they looked at me, and I'd gone through proportions and that with them, and then they looked down the page, and we had a great laugh afterwards, because I could have gone off and had a cup of tea and come back, because no one actually looked at me in the meantime, hardly, maybe one look at me. So after 3 minutes, they looked down the page and said, "Oh, okay, that doesn't really look like what I was drawing," and that is because they didn't actually look. So I remember doing this exercise back when I did animation back in Dumpling Studios. We used to have a life drawing class every week, and one of the exercises the guy did with us, he was a really good teacher, I thought at the time, he got us to draw the person, this model, without looking at the page. And of course immediately, I mean, me as well as everybody else went like, what's that all about? That doesn't make sense. And naturally at the end of the drawing, which is only a minute long maybe, we all had to laugh, because I mean, we could take our hand, because the minute you took your pencil off the page, you didn't know where to put it, and of course we were all looking down trying to cheat and look down, but we weren't allowed to do that. So we ended up with elbows up here, and the feet, God, in their mouth, foot and mouth disease, they had half them. I mean, they looked mad. So, and we had a great laugh, but it was a really good exercise, because if you do a few of them in a row, I can guarantee you that when you go back to actually doing your model, you will look at that person. Because we all do, we all go away and think, oh, I know what that is, and we look back, we look at the page, and then we look back at it and go, including myself, I've done it many a time, and think, oh, that's not actually what's there in front of me at all. So really, it's a really good exercise. So if you're at home and you can just scribble, if somebody's there sitting in a chair, draw them, and you can use the same piece of paper over and over again, because it doesn't matter what it looks like, it's just an exercise. And really, even then when you do draw, just draw people all the time, because if you draw all the time, that's really how you get, that's all what it's all about, is practice. Few tips along the way, and just practice and practice and practice, and it's amazing how you will start to actually improve. And you mightn't think you will, but God, you will. And now I'm going to do his foot down here like this. Now I'm not going to concentrate on too much on just make bring his knee a little bit, and we're going to just do a little bit of shadow in here. I'm not going to do much on the shadow. I'm really just doing this just a quick overview on how to go about trying to doing figures. So I'm emphasizing, as I say today, is the lines of movement, and also a little bit about proportion, and really the rest of it is practice. Very good ways if you're watching people being interviewed on telly. And I suppose one of the unfortunate things nowadays, of course, is social distancing, And if you notice in interviews, they often have them, they're not behind tables anymore, they're often in a studio being interviewed and sitting in chairs, and often you can see the full body of the person while they're actually being interviewed. Get out a pen and paper and draw them. Even if you think, God, that's a mess, it doesn't matter. You're practicing and you're looking at the person, and you will gradually get the hang of it. And watch the angle of their shoulders. Watch if they cross their legs. What's the way they're sitting? Where are they putting the movement? What way are they sitting with the shoulder up, sitting the shoulder down? Don't automatically think that they're going to be dead straight, because people don't. People sit in different ways, and you can get that into the picture, like those using that kind of this idea, the lines of movement going down, even if they're sitting down, crossing their legs, little things like that. Give it a go. Don't get caught up in the details. Don't worry if it's not right. You will learn that way. That's the best way of learning. I'm just going to give a little shadow in here. I'm not going into too much detail on her face at all. And just to get an idea. So we're getting the overall idea. Just kind of giving an overall, a little bit of shadow down here on his leg. So you're going to give him his foot. I said there's no real details on the hands or feet or anything like that. As I say, not even about the anatomy. I'm not really going into that today. I'm really wanted to just give a quick overview on proportion, lines of movement, negative spaces, and as I say, anatomy is a whole other ball game, which I could do another class on if anybody's interested in, and just sort of a bit more detail on it. But I think often if you just, I know for me, that's how I did it really, was learning from the time I was knee high to grasshoppers, I say, was literally drawing. I love to draw people, and was just watching and doing the little quickie sketches like that. And the quicker you do them, the more often you do them, is how you do it in that, and that's the best way to learn, honestly. And think about the little tips along the way. It's a bit like cooking, once you know kind of how to do it, and then you go on telly and somebody says, well, if you mix that a certain way and add that little bit in now, and you think, oh God, I never did that before. That's kind of a bit like drawing. You pick up the little tips along the way. So the little tip, like for example, things like negative spaces. So let's go back and check our negative spaces. And you can see actually where mine are slightly different actually. Because look, here is my negative space. And if you look at this shape, you compare to this shape, it is quite different actually. But it does still work. See, I have a different one. See now, if I had to do that exactly the same, I could bring it back up that way. But it actually works because it works in relation, because the two of these work together well as a couple. If you know what I mean, they work into, that guy wouldn't go with her, but she goes with him better than, so they work together as a couple. But you can check the negative spaces there, you see. So basically that's what the lesson is about. It's a little quick overview, and I have them. I have it on Facebook. I have this is up on Facebook here, and I have the proportions on Facebook as well. So if you want to download them, just as reference pictures, which are really handy to have. Sometimes you just want to remember what I was saying, or even one of these just with the negative spaces. Sometimes it's very easy to forget what I was on about. So just download them, give it a practice, because that's all I can say is just really encourage you to just keep drawing, just do it, because there's nothing to be afraid of, and you can enjoy it and have a bit of fun doing it, and you will have fun, especially if you're doing those ones where you don't look at the page. You'll have a laugh at it too, which is very important. So, because it's all about having fun and not getting panicky about it, and it's not worth it. A lot more important things than that in the world today to worry about. So just enjoy it, and thanks so much for joining in, and hopefully I give you a little tip or two. And if you have any other questions, please put it down on the, I'm just checking on the comment section. Don't mind me looking at that, because I have the laptop over there. Just let me know and put in the comment section, and I will answer them as much as I can. And thanks again, and I'll see you again. I should have a live stream on Monday. Today's Monday, yeah, today's Saturday, Monday, and I'll do something, a painting or something like that. I haven't decided what one I'll do yet, but I'll do something, and I'll put it up on my Facebook page. So thanks very much, and bye now.